What did Melbourne look like when you got here?
You know what blew my mind? The plastic playgrounds blew my mind, and that people had carpets that went to the edge of the room. You know, like carpets that you can't lift up and wash with soapy water and beat with a broom. That blew my mind. I think that was the biggest thing. But I really remember Melbourne. The city was so different. You know, so many warehouses, so many abandoned spots you could go into. Tried breaking into some the other day out west. Good luck, man. It was so different the way we could go and, you know, be 14, 15 and just go play at like the Spencer Street Power Station and find rooms of asbestos or find rooms of disused stuff and paint whatever we wanted. And yeah, really different.
How important is like just being able to like walk around and get into spaces for you? Like, and how much did the last few months kind of affect that? Because I would just go for walks for like hours, just aimlessly like winding through streets just to be doing something. But I found it like such a strange time to be doing it. And if you're like are out in the world, like what kind of experiences have you had like with an empty city kind of at your doorstep?
I think I've loved it, I have to say. I think I loved the clarity. I loved the emptiness. I found it, I found it really moving and kind of head clearing, and it sort of matched the time. You know, it wasn't, I mean, it's not my first time being in situations where the politics are bigger than me. I don't think, anything was a shock. I think, if anything, I felt so grateful to be here, and I feel like as tough as, being in the world's so far longest and hardest lockdown was, I feel so grateful to be here, and I wouldn't have been anywhere else, and I think I felt that through the whole time very strongly.
That's a fascinating thing that I don't think I've heard anyone say.
No.
How were you able to channel your fanatical nature or your fan kind of experiences? Like, what were the things that really got you through? Like, what were you reading, and particularly new things? I'm curious about that.
More than anything, I've been writing a book, which is new for me. I really like writing in my practice, but I never write more than 5,000-6,000 words. It's been a while. I got a degree in philosophy, so I was quite used to writing at a certain point a lot, but it's sort of, hopefully it never goes. You just need to sharpen the skill, you know about that. But so I've sort of actually been really in my own world of writing, and everything else that I do, I can have, 6 meetings a day. I can tell people to do this, to do that, to get back to me. I can start this, stop that. But with writing, man, I've just got to be in the zone, and you have to be in the world of it. So maybe it came at a great time.
Are you writing a book?
Yeah, I'm writing a book.
Do you set like a word limit on yourself, or do you have a kind of routine that you?
Yeah, for someone who hates routine, considering writing requires that, like, or how do you get around that? How do you negotiate that?
Because I need this advice for sure.
Help us, please.
Yeah, I mean, my partner's a writer, so I notice you guys are really creatures of habit.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
News to me.
No, I think for me, it's actually still been quite routineless. Some days it just doesn't happen. Some days you get distracted. You have to do other things. You have to reschedule your life 3 times over, and negotiate all of that. And but yeah, I think I've sort of been a mix of. It's a book about sort of histories of women tattooing other women.
Wow.
in all the ways that kind of means something through time and place. And I think a lot of the times you see tattoo books, they're sort of in the section with, motorcycles and surfing and like cool tough guys stuff, which is great, and it's really important. But, such a big part of the history of tattooing is women tattooing other women. And it's really tied to childbirth and, interiors and ceramics and textiles and, beauty and religion, all these other things. So it's kind of the PhD I'll probably never write that I wanted to write.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of been a little bit irregular in that, sometimes it's research, sometimes it's really furious writing, sometimes it's images, sometimes it's interviewing someone,
You
so
must
it's been
have
quite
seen-
eclectic, yeah.
You must have seen a lot of the beautiful Berber tattoos when you were in Morocco.
Yeah,
The women,
the Amazigan women, yeah, they're so beautiful. And so, yeah, and Bosnia as well. That was sort of my
Right.
big project in Bosnia last year was recording tattoos because it is sort of a dwindling custom, unfortunately, and sort of the last women that have it are quite old and it's a sort of small kind of acts of revival and, reclamation, but I think hopefully there's more to come. But yeah, it's been incredible work.
Yeah, in Afghanistan, it's definitely fizzling out with the Korchi tribes. A lot of the Korchan and their women would have really beautiful tattoos. But yeah, I think post-Taliban era, the way the country's become more radicalized, it's really dissolved. But I'd love to read that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's Morocco and Bosnia as well. There's sort of a really interesting point where, interpretations of Islam come in, or more kind of physical copies of the Quranic texts that suddenly people realise it's sort of looked down upon. And before, where it was kind of really integrated into spiritual belief and, part pagan, part Islamic, has kind of been a really big part of I guess, disintegrating the customs, even though it was, such a strong part of kind of spiritual worship.
How has this work, or has it reframed the way you view tattooing? Because you've been a pretty prolific tattoo artist, and it's been, documented widely, and you've got a lot of critical acclaim for it. How has it made you think about tattooing in a new light, this project?
I think all of these things were the reason that I was really drawn to tattooing in the first place, and part punk and part, giving your friends tattoos with sewing needles, which I've definitely done, and it's awesome. But I think I've always loved things that are kind of really part of the decorative history, or the history that gets kind of written off as being, craft, or, whatever you want to put under that umbrella. And so I think that whole kind of history and that whole attitude of, women tattooing other women was always kind of the biggest call for me in even starting to tattoo. So I think this is kind of an amalgamation of 10 years of kind of travel and tattooing practice and tattooing pretty widely, and kind of different ways of looking at it. It's been cool to do in lockdown because I'm obviously not tattooing anybody or touching anybody. So it's kind of interesting to think about bodies and human connection and touch and sweat and all this kind of stuff when you're totally deprived of it. So it's actually been quite a cool space to write the book in.